What's up, everybody? This is my top 5 shroom trips ever. My personal top 5. So when I talk about top 5, I feel like I need to address the fact that it's not necessarily like top 5 and how crazy it was, or necessarily how top 5 it was and how much I learned. Kind of both in a sense, I guess. Number 5 would have to be when we went camping. Me and a few friends went out to the mountains right here by where my dad lives, and we all ate about an eighth of mushrooms each at once. And spent the night, we had a tent and all that. And I started seeing the strongest visuals that I had ever seen up until that point, I guess. It was to the extent that things were glowing inches off of like objects. There was an aura everywhere. And that was the first thing I started noticing. We ended up going inside of one of the cars just because we were tripping so hard. And every single little thing was moving and crawling around and glowing. And it was one of the most brightest inside of a car experiences ever. I remember I was there with somebody and they would talk to me like really close to my face, and I looked at their face and it was literally like, it reminded me of like a swirl, for some reason kind of like my sweater, and it was like there was no face. It was just a water pool that was just like spinning. There was no eyes, no nothing, just a swirling thing that looked like water. And it was the trippiest shit, like having this person close to my face, like it was crazy. But it ended very fast, and that wasn't something that, was too, magnificent. I didn't really learn too much in that trip. It ended real fast, like I said. So. Number 4 is probably going to have to be the first time that I actually ever ate mushrooms. Which I'm pretty sure, if it's not my first, it's my second. I really kind of, my first time for whatever reason when it comes to mushrooms is kind of blurry. I'm pretty sure that isn't the first time. We got them from a friend here in Victorville. Yeah, we were really young when we got them, so they had to be, it had to be my first time. But we ate them and literally just kind of walked around the neighborhood and went to the park and walked around. And it was, it was the craziest thing ever, like trees and just actually feeling in touch with nature. Like I really had a beautiful first experience with mushrooms, because that was like the best kind of just opening to it. Like it wasn't crazy strong and I didn't really know what was happening, but it really intrigued me and it really made me curious about psychedelics in general. Like just the way that, even just the conversations we were having and just the way things were funny that normally weren't, and how we all were just on the same level. Like it really just kind of, like I said, made me very interested, and was a perfect experience for it, especially for my first time taking mushrooms. A very good group that we were with. I remember at one point my brother was like it was like a pathway to the park, and he was on a hill, and at the top of the hill there was a big brick wall, and he was like just walking back and forth like, and he would skip back and forth like that, and it was, obviously you had to be there, but it was hilarious, and just, it's probably one of the funnest experiences ever. Number 3, I would say, would have to be sneaking into Coachella. I think the only reason this is the third, this is probably the craziest, most mind-fucking experience that was ever introduced to me, and probably really added a lot to my anxiety level. I snuck into Coachella through the exit, dressed as a security guard, while I was tripping balls, already on acid, and had just ate a bunch of mushrooms in the tent. I remember when I was eating the mushrooms, it's like I had no regard for being scared. I didn't care that I was scared. Like I just ate them. I was just like, fuck it, whatever. Boom, boom, boom. We ate a lot. And I didn't realize, I don't know why I didn't pay attention to the fact that I had to sneak into Coachella. I didn't care. I was just tripping. It's a good trip, and I didn't really think about it. Then they're like, okay, let's go. And I started realizing, holy fucking shit, I have to actually do this right now. Basically what happened is I used to work for a CSC, and I had one of their jackets, and all my plan was, which I had already done before, which I actually hadn't done before in the daytime, was to walk through the exit as if I was working there, though my company was technically not allowed to go into the venue. So if somebody was working there that knew what they were doing, they would stop me. But my plan was to go to the restroom, put on the jacket, come out with sunglasses on, walk through the exit, and walk straight into the venue like I knew where I was going. So the walk over to the porta potty wasn't too bad. Once I got in the porta potty and put my sweater on, I realized I was basically all by myself. That's when it started getting to me. I started hearing voices, boom, 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 boom. You can't do this. really started tripping balls hard. So I open the door and it's like a whole new world. For some reason, I just get into character mode in a sense. I put on my glasses and I'm pissed. I act like I'm pissed, and I walking through with this crazy energy, like through the crowd. And for whatever reason, whether they were actually saying shit or they weren't, which they might have been, because I probably looked like a weirdo. I had these big ass, thick ass, dark sunglasses on, and I had a shaved head, and I had a backpack on, and I acted like I was pissing out. And as I'm walking through people, I keep hearing like, "Oh, he's not a security guard. That guy looks fucked up. Look at that guy. Look at that guy. He's tripping. Oh no. He don't belong here." Blah blah blah. All these crazy ass voices, and I had to talk myself into the fact that I'm tripping. That wasn't really being said. Maybe it was. I don't know. I guess I'll never know. But I walked in through the exit. Nobody stopped me. I see my cousin, and he's already in the venue. He's jumping up and down, screaming, running over and gives me a hug, like, "You can't believe you got in," and I'm still tripping, like, no, keep going, who knows who's watching us, blah, blah, blah. It took me about, like, a good couple minutes of walking, turning a corner, and taking off my jacket all crazy to kind of be like, okay, nobody's watching me still. But then it got even worse. Like, then we walked to the middle of the crowd, and I felt like people were on me from the beginning of when I walked in. I felt like there were people just watching me, looking for me. And it took a long time for me to really snap out of it and feel okay and not paranoid. But eventually I did, and it was one of the craziest nights ever. But that in and of itself was one of the craziest, most mind-fucking experiences ever, for sure. Second would have to be when I did what they call the heroic dose. I ate basically over a quarter ounce of mushrooms at once. It was like, ended up being like over 50 grams, but they were wet and they hadn't dried up yet. So I guess according to what the guy told me, that's about the same amount as about 7.5 grams of dried mushrooms. Whether that's right or not, I don't know. I know it was a lot of fucking mushrooms. It took me like fucking 5 minutes and a bunch of Sprite to really get it all down. But it was a lot at once, and instantly I had no chance to feel nervous about it. Once I ate them, it basically happened. We went to a friend of ours, and he had this big, huge mansion, and we went over there just to eat mushrooms. He actually grew them. He was one of the smartest dudes I know, so he knew what he was doing. I'd eaten some of his dried mushrooms he made before. So I walk in the house in the first place, and it has like fucking 12 bedrooms. Like, it's literally, I got lost trying to get from the garage to where the room I was in. It was one of the biggest houses I've probably ever been in. Anyways, we went into his kind of like theater room where he had these big theater chairs, big TV, and then we hooked up my DJ stuff literally just into the wall, because he had a system in his house, in the room. And I was, had all these different songs I wanted to play while we were tripping or whatever. Anyways, we ate the mushrooms. I mean, everything set up. We were just kind of sitting in, different corners of the room and different chairs. Eventually I was like, okay, I'm going to kind of play a little bit of music, get us into it. I probably played 2 songs before I couldn't do anything anymore. By the second song, all the words on Tractor were starting to turn into like hieroglyphics, and they were like floating and coming at my face. And they just weren't letters anymore. They just became symbols that I couldn't read and had no idea what they were. So I had a mix. It was like an hour-long, like soundscapes type shit. So I played that. And it took us to another planet. It took me to another being of life. Like, it took me another universe for 100% sure. I remember when I went back and sat down, I just sat there like ready to meditate, and that was my last actual thought. Like, I remember I just fell asleep as I was awake and went to this other place where I was like a large giant, and everything around me was small. And there were trees everywhere, and they were like smiling, and we were all like family. And I would like walk by and touch the trees, and there were lakes and rivers, and I was just playing with the water and running around and just open and free. Like, it was the craziest. I got to a point where I really started thinking about history and started feeling connected to everything that happened in the past and the future, and how it was all connected at once, and to an extent like I knew everything, but I also knew nothing. And it was like That's really one of the hardest things for me to really articulate as far as the feeling of it and what it was like, because it was just like a pure experience. It wasn't feeling, I was just gone. I had no, like, it wasn't thinking. It was just, I guess. And to this day, you know, that trip really taught me rhythm. That's really what I started seeing, is that there's a rhythm to things. The way I talk in my videos, there's a rhythm to the way that you have conversations. There's a rhythm to how you do your 9-to-5 job. There's a rhythm in everything. That was one of the major things that I learned. We actually put out a mixtape called Rhythm a few weeks later. That was pretty, you know, heavily inspired on that trip. Now when I listen to it, a lot of it is kind of crazy, but it makes sense. And now my number one, not only crazy, but most eye-opening and lesson teaching shroom trip is going to be the trip that I actually just recently talked about, where I cried on mushrooms after being up all night and getting drunk as fuck. The main reason that I consider that to be my number one shroom trip is because the lessons that it taught me. It really showed me that that was probably one of the lowest points that I will allow myself to go. The next day, the next following weeks, I just completely changed everything and really started to get to a point where I knew I could never allow that to be me ever again. For those who don't know, basically what it is, you can watch the whole trip story. I just uploaded it a couple months ago. But I went to a party. We all were drinking the whole night. So I had some mushrooms that I had saved all night and thought I was going to eat later, and I ate them early as fuck in the morning after being drunk all night. And it was one of the nastiest, worst experiences ever. And I got to a point where I had to like break down and cry just because there was so much shit going on in my life with my daughter and this and that. I remember at one point it got so bad that I was crying on the side of the fucking house in the fucking like 6 in the morning on a pile of trash, just laying there feeling like worthless. Yeah, but like I said, it taught me an insane amount, and I'm forever grateful that that happened. And you know, I'm able to never get there again. So that's it. That's my top 5 shroom trips and experiences. My personal top 5 so far. You know, I hope to get back into the swing of learning and experiencing again. That's a really cool way of saying that I want to eat some mushrooms pretty soon. So that's who knows, you know, when that'll happen, but I feel it coming. So I appreciate you guys for watching so much. If you guys are new here, I make videos every Wednesday at noon. Everything from shit about psychedelics to things about myself, my music. But I do appreciate you guys coming by. If you're interested, click the subscribe button. If you guys have already been watching, click the like button. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. I will see you next Wednesday at noon. And until then, smoke something, drink something, have fun, and yeah, peace.